Hey everyone, welcome back to Strange Mind 6. I'm your host Ruby, and today we're going to be reading Chapter 6, I'm No Hero, from the book Strange Things Are Happening in Creepers, The Golden Goblet by Edgar Hyde. But before we begin, I'd like to ask if you can please hit that like button, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It would mean a great deal to us. And without further ado, my dear friends, please grab a snack, grab a drink, or sit back and relax, and let's get to it. Chapter 6, I'm No Hero. Me? Where I come in? Exclaimed Shauna. What do you mean? You scared the living daylights out of me. Don't go depending on me to come in anywhere. If this is a story with a hero, then I'll help you find that hero, no problem. But don't go thinking I'm her. It was really nice meeting you guys and ghouls, but if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna wake myself up and go back to the living a shallow life in a state of blissful ignorance. Now that's something I'm very good at. Granny MacDonald was chuckling away as she sat beside Shauna on one of the pews in the church. She was proud of Shauna for standing up to herself and for not being afraid. In fact, Shauna reminded Granny MacDonald of herself when she was young. But she knew that the angelic ghost was right, and that Shauna was the only person who could help. So she told Shauna exactly that. But Granny, why am I the only one? There must be other MacDonalds in the world. Surely any of them could volunteer, couldn't they? Shauna, my child, there is one other thing that I have not told you until now. Every clan has a witch. She paused, looking thoughtful for a moment, and then added, That word has had such negative press recently, don't you think? Let me guess, said Shauna. You're the witch of the MacDonald clan, and because I'm the only descendant willing to listen to the secret memory, my destiny is to become the next witch of the clan. Something like that? Yes, something like that. But perhaps without the melodramatic flourish. And if you don't like the word witch, then we can use the term female druid. At this, there was a commotion coming from the pews as the male ghosts and demons yelled at Granny MacDonald when they heard her say female druid. The fact that they were upset amused Granny MacDonald tremendously. Oh my, I really have put the rat among the bats, haven't I? You mean the cat among the pigeons, Granny? Suggested Shauna. Granny laughed again and replied, Do you see a cat? You see any pigeons? Neither do I. Shauna looked around and realized that the church was not only full of ghosts and demons, but also full of rats, bats, and spiders the size of people, but even hairier legs. There were mice in the skirting boards, moths on the lamps that were bigger than the lights themselves. It was truly horrible. Now, Granny, said a hooded figure, who appeared out of nowhere. You know that girls can't be druids. That's a man's job. This very old-fashioned character turned out to be Danny the Druid. He was a druid from the 1st century who had lost his powers as punishment for for misusing them. Granny MacDonald whispered to Shauna that he never took women seriously. Being a druid might be a man's job according to you, Danny, but while our resident druid is powerless, perhaps a female druid is better than no druid at all, said the American-sounding angelic ghost, whose name turned out to be Christian. Remember the deal, Danny, he continued. You'll only get your powers back once you accept that women are as much use to the clan as men are. We're all in this together. We all have special skills, Danny. Your job during this crisis will be to share your secrets with Shauna. Just because you can't use your skills doesn't mean you can't remember them. I'll do anything to get my powers back. Christian then looked over to a very kind-looking man and said, Carlos, can you teach your powers to Shauna? You know palm reading and things like that. See, that guy's a Celtic Highlander? Shauna asked her granny. Mm-hmm, said Granny MacDonald. Remember, many Celtic Highlanders were forced from this place and turned up in all sorts of places. Many, like Christian here, were actually born in America because their fathers immigrated there at the time of the Highland clearances. Some even turned up in Napoleon's French army before that. The Highlanders have settled all over the world, from Australia and New Zealand to Argentina and Canada. Take Carlos here. His ancestors fled to France, and after the rebellion of 1745, he was one of the clansmen who helped Bonnie Prince Charlie escape to Paris. Once there, his ancestor met a beautiful Romani woman from Spain. He became a part of their family, and they were all proud of his Celtic Highland background. So much so that even by the time Carlos arrived, even his Romani relatives called him Carlos the Celt. So you see, my dear, you should never judge a book by its cover. You must always be open-minded about people. Carlos walked over to where Shauna and Granny MacDonald were sitting. Then, like a gentleman from a fairy tale, he bowed, took Shauna's hand and kissed it. He smiled at her and said, My family and the Celts have much in common, Shauna. Mysterious powers and so on, but also we've both suffered from people who think we are not as good as them. We know better than to judge others by the way they look. Christian sighed. He was the only ghost allowed to make important speeches, or so he thought. Very touching, I'm sure, Carlos, he said, and then looked at Shauna. We need someone to operate back in your world, the real world. We need someone like you, Shauna. Someone who knows our history and believes in us, and who can persuade others to go back to their true souls. Someone to persuade others to turn back on the greed of the world and to be happy just doing good things for other people. Someone who can. He looked over at a ghostly lady who was typing everything that he was saying and said, "Are you getting this, Lydia? Make sure it's accurate. I think this is one of my better speeches, and I may want to syndicate it." He looked over at Shauna again and said, "You get the picture, sweetheart, don't you?" Okay, but you'll need to give me some clues as to who this powerful bad guy is, what he's up to and how to stop him," replied Shauna, surprising herself at how full of purpose she sounded. Her questions were met with silence. So... Shauna motioned with her hands, inviting someone to join in the conversation. The name? More silence. Okay, just the last name first. Shauna surveyed an assembled ghostly bunch in the church pews, all of them shuffling uncomfortably and staring at their feet, a dizzying occupation for the giant spiders who, after all, had 8 of them. Even the confident Christian was pretending to be engrossed in his notes of his speech that the ghostly lady typist had just handed to him. Am I to assume from the silence that we don't know the name of the bad guy who is close to gaining control of the world? Asked Shauna, looking slightly alarmed. Christian looked up at her from his notes and said, "Oh yes, that's right, sweetheart. You've got it. So if you could just find out who the bad guy is, where he is, what he's up to, and how to stop him, that'd be fantastic. Call us when it's all over, kid." Granny MacDonald knitted her brows a little, and at this point Shauna realized that folks in the other world did not know everything after all. And that is the end of Chapter 6. Tune in next video for Chapter 7. Ah! No, literally, that's the title of Chapter 7. Ah! This has been Ruby, your host, signing off. And may you have a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, or night, whenever this video reaches you.